Book 5 is perhaps one of the most philosophical books, although, in all honesty, uh, the Karamazov Brothers is a very philosophical novel, of course. And they are, in Book 5, you have this interesting character who is Smerdyakov, who appears several times, and he has dialogues with various people, especially with Ivan. And I like to bring your attention to the last chapter in Book 5, so please read it carefully because it will become quite important later. But for the moment, I just want to discuss about rebellion, and I would encourage you to discuss on the forum the chapter with the Grand Inquisitor. So the chapter on rebellion discusses what in the history of philosophy is called the problem of evil. And I'm guessing you may be familiar with the problem of evil from other philosophy courses. But even if you are, or if you are not, let me just put it in very short, in very easy terms, if I can put it this way. So, the problem of evil goes this way: we have an all-powerful, an all-good, and an all-loving God. Those three qualities are very important for the problem of evil. And people say, well, if such a God exists, then there would be no unnecessary evil in the world. So if God, who is all good, all powerful, and all benevolent, exists, there is no unnecessary evil in the world. And I emphasize the unnecessary evil in the world. You could just say, evil that cannot be explained. Now, if you look around the world, those philosophers will continue to say, and Ivan says the same thing, although he goes a step further, I would say. Uh, if you look around the world, there's so much evil, so much unnecessary evil. Children die of cancer. Why? How is that necessary? Why would a 1-year-old child have cancer when suffer to cancer? We have the Holocaust. Why was that necessary? We have quite lots of persecution. We just open the TV and see what happens in the world today, and nothing is comprehensible. So with this argument, the conclusion would be that God does not exist. And obviously, the one who is challenged by the argument is Alyosha. That's why Ivan in this situation discusses those things with Alyosha. Let me say one more thing actually about the argument before we go into more detail. Because if you think of it differently, whenever you say, "Why God? Why did this happen? Why me? Or why someone else?" Uh, you are very close to formulating the argument from the problem of evil. You obviously do not formulate it, in a formal way or anything like that. But nevertheless, it's still, you express your incomprehensibility of the evil that took place in your life. You do not understand how a good person can suffer something like that. So, how does the chapter begin? The chapter begins quite interestingly. And I mean, we talk about the problem of evil, and Ivan says, "There is one thing I have to confess to you. I could never understand how one could love one's neighbor." Phew. So, let me say a few words about that. Many of us, we are very much inclined to do good things to other people. We give money for people, for the poor. We give money for people who have cancer. And doing so, we express our love for humanity. But, and do not understand me wrongly, I'm not saying this is bad. But would we be as open to doing other things? For example, to love the person next to us who is giving us various things to do during the day, who uh, with whom we have a direct encounter. We smell the other person. We see what the other person does at various moments in times. Isn't that the neighbor? Let me, or we are very much inclined to help the poor, the general poor, but it's much harder to take up individual poor person in the house, to deal with his or her problems daily, to cleanse the wounds that that person has. We do those things. We do we do with our own little. We take something from us. We bounce to things that we have. If you take $5 and put them into a bank account, or you put them into a foundation that takes care of the poor, we say, well, we're done. We did our duty. Now we can go watch a movie, or we can go have a nice little restaurant. But taking care of the other, not of the other in the abstract, as Ivan says or Ivan says, taking care of the neighbor truly means to dedicate your full life, your entire life to the other person. And if you remember the word kenosis that we discussed before, it is connected with that. Now, so the problem of evil begins with that, perhaps with the apparition of evil in the world. And Ivan describes various examples, and especially the one with the child who is eaten by the dogs. Um, Quite striking, by the way, a true event that Dostoevsky, I think, read someplace. So how do we deal with this, as human beings? How do we deal with the problem of evil? Ivan does not describe the problem of evil in the philosophical terms I told you before. So he doesn't have the conclusion of the argument, God does not exist. But what he says is, this is the world which God created, if the world that God created has children who die of cancer, and if I have to accept this world and somehow accept salvation into a world in which all human beings suffer tremendously, or not all human beings, but the majority of human beings suffer tremendously, then I am not interested in this world. I give back the ticket. That's the idea with the ticket at the end of the chapter, right? I should have opened the book before, so I can read it to you. I cannot find it right now. Anyway, let me not lose the time here on the video, so I will find it and send it back on the forum to you. So if this is the world you give me, God, I refuse the ticket. I don't want this one. Think of it this way, as Ivan proposes it to. We have the power to create the world at this moment. We are gods. And that if you create this world, you have the Holocaust. That children would be dying of cancer. That there are drunk drivers. That there are various evil things that happen in the world. Would you create it? Would you create the world that we have, knowing everything that happens through it? I think Dostoevsky has an answer to that, and the answer that he has will appear in book 6, so we'll discuss about it next week.